Coming up on Smart Tech Today, Matthew Cassinelli and I have the answer to your drunk Roomba problem. Well, eventually. Plus, we talk about a bunch of new Google news, including Google releasing some updated clocks for the Nest Hub and Nest Hub Max, and a bunch of HomeKit news, including some new blinds options that are coming, I should say window coverings that are coming to the HomeKit framework. It's all that, plus our picks of the week and a question and requests for you folks out there to send in projects, and a little bit of a tease about an upcoming guest. So stay tuned for Smart Tech Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am your other host, Matthew Cassinelli. Hello, Mikah.
Hello, howdy, how do you do?
Doing good. I am ready for today's show. There's lots of cool HomeKit news coming later, which is fun.
Yeah, but first, if you're feeling a little drunk, go ahead and have a little cheers with me here as we talk about our first story. iRobot, the maker of the Roomba, there's the cheers, has had to deal with a little bit of an issue lately where folks were saying, my Roomba is drunk. And that is because Roombas were, for some reason, kind of going around, running into things and just not working how they were supposed to work. iRobot says, hey, we're working on a fix. It's going to be a few weeks, and then we'll have a fix for you. So I guess until you get that fix out, I don't know. What do? Do you hold the hand of your Roomba and walk it around your space? Or do you, I guess, here's my question for you, Matthew. Do you think that the average Roomba owner also owns a standard vacuum cleaner? Or do you think that the average Roomba owner has replaced the need for a vacuum cleaner with the Roomba?
I feel like you gotta still have, maybe not one of the large like corded ones that are pretty powerful, maybe just like a little hand one to get stuff where it can't reach. But yeah, I've got to assume that's like your main, I don't know. It's like, this sounds like one of those situations where when your smart home lights don't work and you're just like, how do I turn on the lights? And it's like, no, flip the switch, dummy. Like, it's like, I don't remember how to do the old thing anymore, but it's pretty fun. Like the videos are showing them just, they can't navigate back to their home base. And it seems like their software update did something to the mapping capabilities. And so it's not going along the walls and just bouncing all around and then can't get home and things like that. So this seems like, I don't know. It does seem like one of those products that people love because you never have to think about it. And then now that it's hard to tell if this like would break trust or just be like super annoying and then just a funny anecdote later on or something. But not great, at least right now. But yeah, there's a fix on the way. Just a couple
exactly.
Weeks, so.
The problem there is how long it's going to take. I think for the software update to roll out, because this is the difference is like if you have a Roomba, then you probably have it set up to vacuum your place pretty regularly. And to go 2 weeks without vacuuming whenever you're used to having things getting vacuumed every day, that's a big difference. I guess the one problem that I have, because I've got a robotic vacuum and I dig it. I think it's great, but I don't use it all that often. Because I really love my vacuum cleaner and like actually vacuuming things and seeing everything that it picks up is quite a fun experience for me, I guess, satisfying experience for me. But the other thing is you have to kind of prepare the way for your robotic vacuum. And that's what's really kind of annoying about them. If you don't have, because my space isn't so consistent that I don't have to prepare the way for the vacuum. I've got dogs that have toys that they want to throw out under the ground, and for some reason they don't put them back in their toy box on their own. That is a fault of the owner, I'm sure. And so that's, it runs over the top of one of those toys and you've got an issue there. And that's pretty much the big thing that keeps me from being able to just set it on a schedule. Everything else is, somewhat standard. But if you don't have a vacuum for 2 or more weeks, that could be kind of frustrating. I don't know if it's enough to result in folks, sort of giving up on the iRobot experience because it's been around for a while.
This is just like one of those, I can't think of the right way to say this because it uses a bad word, but Internet of Bad Stuff, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
Is the Twitter account that I see that talks about stuff like this. So it's definitely one of those. I'm sure it'll actually just become like a classic story of how Roombas didn't work for 2 weeks. I feel like I don't have one for the same reason, even specifically because of the mapping, because I have like a weird layout, or there's a step up where the staircase is in between 2 spaces. So it'd have to have a really detailed, like perfect map and probably get stuck. So hopefully support will get this fixed soon.
So how hydrated are you, Matthew?
Fairly well, actually, but I can't fully know because I don't have this new Gatorade wearable patch.
What? A wearable patch from Gatorade? What is this? What is this? And why does it exist?
First of all, I love the headline. Gatorade created a patch that tells you how much Gatorade to drink, because it's like, of course, it's so self-serving for them. I feel like this is an interesting concept rather than something that most people would get regularly, purely because it seems like it says a 2-pack is $25. So that's a lot for, it looks like something that is a one-time use. I can't totally tell, but it's sort of a low-tech way to use. Here, let me read out how it works. It is made from layers of thin polymers etched with microfluidic channels. So basically, when you sweat, it fills up those microfluidic channels with it says it gets dyed orange at the same time using like tiny little food dye, non-toxic food dye. And then also when it reacts with chlorine, in the sweat, it turns purple, saying like how much sodium is detected. So it's basically a way for, it's like a pH test for your skin that you just wear, and it can basically tell you, oh, you're a little dehydrated, and so therefore you should probably drink some more Gatorade. So it's kind of...
What if I don't sweat enough? Wait,
I mean, you gotta work
what's
harder,
the point of the phone app there to the side? Do you take a photo of it? Does it connect? Is there some sort of... Is it Bluetooth, or is the patch just a sort of pH detection system? Is there any electronic thing about this?
I'm not sure, actually. Hold on. Okay, I'm having trouble with the other article. Oh, no. I don't know how to connect to the app. I didn't look at that part. It was saying that it was just the... Okay, that's what it does. You scan the patch. So, yeah. So you scan the patch, and then it interprets that based off of how much information is there and creates a little sweat profile. So yeah, that is a good point.
Oh,
so
yes.
it's low tech combined with like a clever processing system too. I think that was like the article was saying, instead of this being $150 thing that you wear constantly and then it has to always transmit it and charge it, they just do those little things and you can scan it. So, but it is
I'll be selling,
still $25. So.
I'll be selling an NFT of my sweat profile for starting bid is $30,000. And so one of you can be the proud owner of Mikah Sargent's sweat profile. And you and only you will have the true the true non-fungible proof that it is your sweat profile alone.
If you don't know what NFTs are, go look them up, because I don't either. So
watch Tech News Weekly. We just recorded an episode earlier today, and one of the interviews was with Lance Ulanoff, who explained to all of us what the heck an NFT, non-fungible token, is and how it works. But basically, it's modern baseball cards or modern Pokemon cards. And so, and it's all on the blockchain, which I still don't know what that really means. Yeah, I said
mean,
the word.
that is beyond this show. So, how did we get from Gatorade sweat patches to the blockchain?
Check out Blockchain today on twit.tv. Let's move on before I keep talking about non-fungible things. Amazon has an ALEXA app for Xbox, which of course was, home of Microsoft is home of Cortana, but Cortana is not quite what Cortana once was. And so there's a new thing, there's a new sheriff in town, and its name is ALEXA. And how feature heavy is ALEXA on the Xbox? Is it a full on deal?
Yeah, it seems like an interesting mix. And at first I was kind of like, this doesn't seem that interesting. But the more I read about it, I was kind of like, this is an interesting just leap into people's, especially gamers, televisions and the way that they tend to use it. Because I know for a while I was using my Xbox to watch YouTube videos and things like that, especially on my monitor. Like that's a large thing for people, is having a monitor type setup that you also use as a TV. And so this can let you just do basic, like turn on and off the console. I don't understand how it works in terms of, I assume it is connecting to the Xbox on a lower level than just an app that you open, because it can obviously control the console. But you can also just be a visual command center for it. So it's like having an Echo Show sort of through your Xbox. And so that's what I thought was the most interesting. I can't totally tell the extent of all of those features, but it does seem just like an interesting. Game consoles are a huge literal space in people's homes in terms of even just how much they take up, but it uses that big screen. And so I think that's an interesting strategy for smart assistants to continue just in all those different aspects of your day, basically, because a lot of times I think the other thing that I noticed is Xbox is coming out with a more official headset. And so you would have more voice delivery directly into the Xbox if you didn't have I can't even remember what the thing is that scans your motions. What is that?
Oh,
it's so like
the Kinect?
irrelevant. Yeah, there it is. It's like not even relevant that I've just forgot it. That was like the main way to get voice chat or through a headset, but just them making those more common and good quality will expand that too. So it's pretty interesting. It is like there's no place for Siri on any type of game console. So I guess the Apple TV if you count it, but I don't know if many people count the Apple TV as a game console.
Yeah, not I, said the cat. That's for sure. Well, let us traipse into the world of enterprise for a moment to talk about how even those with their business suits, ties, and shiny shoes can too participate in virtual assistants and voice assistants. Voice assistants are coming to the enterprise to enable some automations and other things that enterprise people need. This is hard for me to kind of wrap my head around. I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair. This is
I feel like they all work with fountain pens and I don't know, fax machines at the enterprise level. Go ahead, Matthew. I'm just
enterprise is just big business. Lots of people working in those businesses. But I think this article from VentureBeat is an interesting summary of just the ways we've talked about some of these stories over the past year, but it's a nice roundup of what Google and Amazon have done in the last year to basically court people who are working at home now, as well as Cortana has moved from that consumer angle into Microsoft's more, it is like enterprise based, but like always an interesting thing about the pandemic has, in many ways, we're all just people still, especially if you do end up working at home or anything like that for any sort of extended period of time. That blend of just your personal life and work life get so much closer. But a lot of them were talking about just how with Google Assistant, you can do Zoom video chats and things like that, especially on the shows. So there's a lot of focus this year there's Alexa for business, where you can do like video conferencing and jump into those different types of meetings a lot easier. Like that is a huge pain in the butt that I am glad not to be in any sort of Polycom-based environment anymore. They even talked about Microsoft actually just came out with speakers specifically for Microsoft Teams. So if you don't know what Polycom is or those types of products, they are just like those conference room table speakers that you'd see a lot of times that are usually weird shaped, and it's just so that you can have people on speakerphone and it's not a giant mess. I worked in a remote office, and so it was one of those things where we were always listening in to somebody else's meeting in the other place, and you just can't hear anything. It's just like wah, 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 the whole time. And then you're like, oh, you try to contribute, and then it's like, wait, what did you say? So that whole experience, it's like Microsoft's thing will be able to identify people and record and with live transcript and timestamps. So that's pretty amazing. Like that's neat. I think they just announced that this week. So there are actually, like, Cortana could be useful, just people don't want to buy consumer products with it in it. And also, like, Amazon's took it over and is even now more present on places like the Xbox where people would be using it. So it's interesting. And then the article also talks about just some of the Google Assistant guest mode so that you can not have people listening in, or I couldn't exactly tell how Microsoft phrased this, but customers will have finer grained control over whether their voice data is used to improve its speech recognition, because I think that was Microsoft gotten in trouble sometimes for their smarts that end up being just like your employer is recording everything you say now. And I think there was a controversy a while back where it was like, how often are you using Microsoft Office? And that's a measure of your productivity as a business. Oh, and it was like,
that got some real blowback.
Having Excel open doesn't mean I'm getting work done. Like, so it is I think this is actually a super interesting article. We'll have it linked in the show notes.
Cool. Yeah. For anybody out there to check it out. I didn't realize that it was, such an in-depth piece at first. And so kind of going back past those basics to see how it's being used is really neat, because I don't know, I often do think of these things as more consumer focused and not necessarily kind of working in the places where quote unquote real work gets done. It's like you come home to your smart assistant, but to have it working at work too is kind of neat.
Well, especially at an enterprise level, just there's so much tiny little inefficiency like that adds up on a huge, huge scale of just like people trying to dial into meetings and are late and things like that costs businesses tons of money just because of the scale. So automation anywhere is helpful.
Exactly. The next piece that we're going to talk about today is a study on sleep and smartphone use. So a study in Frontiers in Psychiatry. This was a journal, and the study published. Interestingly, the title of the BGR article kind of is different from the outcome of what the study suggests. So I should say, the focus of the title in BGR is different from the focus of the study. So the headline for the article says, "Sleep is dramatically impacted by smartphone use, study finds." I think we all know that's kind of a given. The article, however, the study that was published in the journal, however, was looking to something else entirely, which was to see if smartphone use was more of an impact on sleep, or if this so-called smartphone addiction was an impact on sleep, had an impact on sleep. So smartphone use as a whole, there may be people who use their smartphone regularly who would not self-report. That's what this study did. It looked at 1,043 participants aged 18 to 30, and they completed what was called the Smartphone Addiction Scale short version, which was looking at use of smartphones, and it kind of like gives you a scale to kind of find out if smartphone addiction is something that you have, and then how that impacts your sleep. So I may use my smartphone 7-8 hours a day, but not suffer from smartphone addiction. And then someone who uses their smartphone for 3 hours a day, but does suffer from smartphone addiction, would have their sleep impacted. So here is the conclusion to this study. Using a validated instrument, which the validated instrument was that study, or was that questionnaire, 39% of young adults reported smartphone addiction. So you started with those 39%. Smartphone addiction was associated with poor sleep independent of duration of usage, indicating that length of time should not be used as a proxy for harmful usage. So essentially, we can't always look at length of usage time of smartphones as a means to determine if smartphone use has an impact on sleep. Instead, what is better is to look at smartphone addiction and see how that has impacted poor sleep, because regardless of the length of usage, it seems that there was a tie, but there was an association between poor sleep and smartphone addiction. I think a fascinating piece, and it takes us past what I would normally kind of talk about here, which is blue light and the suprachiasmatic nuclei and all that fun stuff. Where, again, I won't go into all of the detail, but essentially, our circadian rhythm is affected by the light that we see throughout the day, and depending on the light, our brain produces or does not produce more or less of the necessary chemicals needed to cause our body to start to make us feel sleepy and then go to sleep. And so one would think that that would have a role on sleep, and it does. That's a separate kind of study to look at, to pay attention to. But this suggests that smartphone addiction is a whole nother thing that we need to focus on, because it could be that even if your suprachiasmatic nuclei and therefore your circadian rhythm are not affected by too much blue light intake from your phone, the anxiety of not being around your smartphone when you do have smartphone addiction, or some of those other kind of biological processes that take place, could be impacting sleep. And I think that is a fascinating thing, that all this does is it opens up more channels of study to kind of try to pull these things apart, and maybe not focus too much on one thing or the other when we're trying to understand the impact that screen time has on our sleep.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I like that it is sort of a splinter against saying that just using it for a long time means you're addicted also. They're like, right, chances are if you're addicted, you are going to, or many people who do use it for a long time are, but a simple example is just like if you're using that stuff for work in the same type of day, and even if it's a different purpose, the characteristics of addiction, they're saying it's like preoccupation with the phone, neglect of other meaningful activities, distress when your phone is not accessible, and continuing to use it despite evidence of harm. So I think that's interesting. It's like, especially during like the last year, it's just like you might just be bored and you're just using your phone. They're not necessarily addicted to it. And then other times it's like, I am doing this way too much and not taking care of myself or something like that. So I like that distinguish, because it's even, I think of video games also, not that it's the same type of thing or has the same like universal impact on our life, but there's times where I play video games for a long time and I'm just like playing for a while. It's totally normal, and not just like every day I'm playing and not eating or something like that. So I like the I guess, is it scientific distinction that it's just like, just because you're doing it for a long time doesn't mean you're necessarily addicted. I could stop whenever I want to. No.
Seriously, I can stop whenever I want. Yes. The sort of research-based peer-studied distinction between the two is good to have. Let us move on to talk about Google's latest round of Nest devices. Excuse me, not Nest devices, Nest software releases, including.
I made the same mistake when I first read the article. I was like, there's 3 new Nest Hubs and Macs. And then I was like, oh, no, it says clocks.
Yeah, just the clocks. They should call them faces, clock faces.
Yeah, exactly.
That you can check out. Go ahead.
I thought this was just an interesting... I like to report on these quick little Nest Hub updates because I do think it's an iterative product that they've been improving over time. And these are very just simple. You can switch the frame just to be a little minimal clock face, light or dark, or large digital numbers along with the weather on it immediately. And so a lot of times this can just be nice for, I think, especially as these get more prevalent, they do need to fit into home environments more and not call as much attention to themselves. Like I have noticed that mine has the, I don't remember what the technology is, but it's using the infrared sensor to know if you're nearby or not. And then it pulls up the screen and it's got like a whole, like, here's your day and the weather and different things for you. But I don't necessarily want that all the time. I do sometimes just want like a minimal display from afar. And I think I said, was it last episode that I said the clock that I bought was like the best purchase that I made in all of college? Yeah. And so like,
yep.
Sometimes even when you buy an Apple Watch, sometimes it's just like, oh, it's nice to have a watch. Like very simple stuff. But I just wanted to see them continue to improve those little home experiences. And I do think smart displays are something that we'll see more of over the next few years. And so they're kind of moving forward on it now, which is good. I could totally see the other thing I just thought of me being cursed as a former marketer is that there's like branded watch or like clock faces that you could put out or classic styles and things like that. So I'm always all for more user customization.
Yeah, absolutely. The next piece is all about the Starling Home Hub. So we've talked about the Starling Home Hub before as a way for folks who are part of the HomeKit platform to be able to add their Nest devices to HomeKit. So in times past, Google, purchased Nest and integrated it, and Nest cams and all of those different devices did not work with Apple's HomeKit framework. Then there came something called Homebridge that allowed developers to create plugins that would essentially serve as the integration point between a non-HomeKit device and a HomeKit device, and a HomeKit home. So I could have a garage door opener that doesn't traditionally work with HomeKit actually work with HomeKit through the use of this service. So what has happened is one of the developers of one of the original most popular plugins for Homebridge realized that sometimes folks just wanted to add HomeKit integration to their Nest devices. And so that developer created the Starling Home Hub, which lets you basically buy a bridge for your home network to bring HomeKit support to those Nest devices that you may have. So you may have a Nest thermostat and Nest cameras and things like that. You plug in this hub into your router, and suddenly those devices will work with HomeKit. A new update has come to the system that brings even more functionality to the platform. It is called the Starling Developer Connect API. And what this does is it's almost like Homebridge in the sense that developers or people who know a little bit about code, who know about Node.js and Python, can use those tools to create their own integrations with their Nest devices. So think of it as a way to bridge between Nest and any system that you have, be it your own system that you're kind of building from the ground up, or something entirely new. And so this Nest API, or excuse me, the Developer Connect API is a completely free upgrade or update to the system, but you do need the $89 Starling Home Hub to use with it. But by doing that, you add HomeKit integration to everything. And this is good, too, because of Google's slow transition into just being a Nest hub. It's transition into kind of changing the way that integrations work. Because of that, it's difficult to get all of even your Nest products to cooperate with one another. So this is, I think, a way to kind of unlock all of that and be able to control everything. Pretty neat.
Yeah, it's cool. I was looking at the API docs, and you could make shortcuts to tap into this too, which is pretty cool.
Oh, sweet.
A whole API key, and they just gave example languages, but it is like a universal endpoint, which is cool. And it does seem like it also adds a couple more features. I don't have the Nest stuff, so some of it I was kind of like, I don't necessarily know what that means. You can control your active Nest temperature sensor. So you can use the temperature sensor to schedule different things. I don't know exactly what is the problem there, but you can just use HomeKit's automations and then even convert to shortcut in HomeKit to have different dependencies, like a if-then statement and stuff like that, which is cool. And then also, I think I saw that you can use the Nest Detect button to become a HomeKit button then, and then a little physical device that you can trigger. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, it's like you said, it's basically an API for Nest stuff, but it is called the Starling Developer Connect SDC API on their website at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What is this next story? I think this is actually fantastic. I've got to be honest with you. Although I want televisions to do this. Sorry, go ahead. Tell me about this next piece, and then suddenly it'll make sense.
That's pretty much exactly what my point is going to be. That the new Google TV that's on Chromecast. So regardless of whether or not it's debuted on the new Chromecast, just Google TV will also have a mode where if basically when you're setting it up, you can just skip that and set it up as a basic TV. So I feel like this is a little bit of a weird process, but I am assuming Google TV stuff is going to be built into more TVs. And this isn't Android TV 12, which is like the same thing, but different. But it basically lets you skip the smart Google features and just set up your TV as a dumb TV, is how I was thinking of it, where you can still get live TV and external devices and just not have all of those extra features on top. So I feel like this, I mean, like, I don't know about you, but I have an Android TV that I don't ever use. I wouldn't have signed into it if I wanted to, or if I could. And so I feel like going forward, this can kind of enable you to have a smart TV if you want it, but you're not stuck with it trying to do the stuff in the background when you don't actually care and you just have a set-top box or Apple TV or something. So like you said, I want this to come from manufacturers themselves to let you just set the TV up dumb, but they have slightly different motivations than Google. And even now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if there's like a larger story developing about iOS 14 is it 0.5? I don't even know now that is increasing privacy restrictions. And like Google has recently, I think even voluntarily said that they're going to stop collecting third-party data about people. And there's definitely going to continue collecting first-party data. So maybe, I don't know how that can be related to that. But this is kind of an interesting, maybe this is part of that strategy of like, we're not going to force all of this because it does end up getting a little into like antitrust territory, or I think that's what a lot of these big companies are concerned about. So this is a nice, like, you're not forced into signing into Google just to use the TV that you bought. You can set it up with a basic TV mode now. So pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk more about that story as that stuff develops. There are some privacy implications in the future, but that's good for us at least. So Facebook's not happy about it, but
exactly. Up next, we're going to talk about Apple news. All right. What's first in Apple news? Losing YouTube on the old Apple TV. That's what's first. I've heard some complaints about this already. I know it is a big concern for folks. What the heck's happening? Why is YouTube leaving the Apple TV?
Because you haven't bought an Apple TV in 9 years, is if this is affecting you. So I wanted to talk about this because I'm curious. I don't actually agree with the premise of this article from The Verge, where it's saying that the old app, like this, losing YouTube on the Apple TV is tied directly to there not being a new Apple TV, because it's kind of confused. It's like smashing two different stories together, where that is the old Apple TV that was stopped being sold in 2017, and Apple hasn't made a new one since the Apple TV 4K in 2012, and then now 2017. So it has been a while since the latest Apple TV came out, but that one still has YouTube. So I was like, this is a weird mishmash of those stories, but I think it's still relevant overall because of those larger points that if you do have one of those, it's old. By now, you probably already know that and don't have any of the latest stuff, but now fully like apps aren't even working on the old Apple TV. So I think I have one of these in my bedroom. But it's also worth noting that basically Apple needs to come out with a new Apple TV sometime soon, because there have been, I mean, I can't even name how many versions of both. I mean, I'm sure Google hasn't entirely had a TV service and then discontinued it in the meantime and then started the new one or something like that since the last one came out. So those companies maybe have been flailing a little bit and Apple's just been staring forward, but it is due time to get more power with the Apple TV, and I think more features dedicated to why it is this product costs so much money when there's a lot of other stuff that's like a big story that went around recently was just how good Rokus are. And when they have even stuff like the Apple TV app on them and AirPlay too, what benefit are you even getting from the Apple TV anymore? So this is kind of maybe a bit of a stake in the ground for March right now, because we might see some stuff in future Apple events this year, but it's time to get it. And maybe if you're running out of YouTube, hold on, use AirPlay for as long as you can, and then there should be one sometime. It's been a while, so we're overdue. I guess it's kind of a warning, like don't go out and buy one now, because you might end up regretting that. So just a little heads up.
Go.
Or if you're confused why YouTube's not working.
I love this next one because I think that it speaks to something that I want every company to do. And it also is a little bit of preparing the way for a future in which privacy laws require this kind of thing. So Apple has set up a system to help you transfer your photos and videos from iCloud to Google Photos. So before you kind of had to just do it on your own. The Google Photos app did make it easy. And in fact, I regularly open my Google Photos app and can then have it. Yeah, exactly. Have it upload the photos. But what is a better system is an actual, an actual real system that is sort of sanctioned to help you get everything set up. So you go to a support page, and on that support page, it walks you through. You can request to transfer a copy of your iCloud photos and videos associated with your Apple ID to another service. This service is initially available to customers in Australia, Canada, the EU, Iceland, Liechtenstein, New Zealand, Norway, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United States for transfers to Google Photos. So just with Google Photos right now, you can request to transfer a copy of photos and videos you store in iCloud Photos to Google Photos. Transferring photos and videos from iCloud Photos doesn't remove or alter the content you store with Apple, but sends a copy of your content to the other service. It takes between 3 and 7 days, which is interesting. That is so that they can verify the request and then to go on and make the transfer. And some things are not available to transfer, and you can kind of learn what you can and can't transfer depending. But given that it is the way that you do it is by logging in at privacy.apple.com. This is absolutely 100,000% them being preemptive about upcoming laws about data portability. So I think this is great that they're getting ahead of things. But what I like even more is that it means good things for us in the future. It means that data portability can be done, and it can be done in a way that is simple. And I am looking forward to being able to just move my data between things very easily.
Yeah. It's not any type of sync, though. So that was like my first thought was you could just do this regularly and transfer all of your stuff over. But I'm pretty sure you would just be doing the entire thing. And so it doesn't sound any sort of efficient. I did see there's also, I saw another complaint that was like, I just want to be able to export mine as a zip to a local file, which you can do. I'll have to find the tweet and I can put it in show notes, but I think it's on iCloud.com if you just want to get your stuff directly. But every time I've tried to use something like I have Google Photos, but I don't remember if it's just because it's one of those things where it has to rescan my library, but I don't think I ever kept the app open long enough to sync all of my stuff. And I have a lot of high quality things that I think it has to process down. And so I'm not really sure why it would take so long, but this is just a more direct thing. Instead of having to leave a device open for like 3 days straight just to get your stuff to sync, they'll do it on the back end.
I went ahead and went through with the process just to see. I'm already done. But it's not done, but I'm done. You go to privacy.apple.com, you log in, and then you click to select transfer a copy of your data. You then do one of those logins that you'll be familiar with if you've ever logged in with Google on a website, where it pops open a page and it shows you log in with Google. I chose my personal Gmail account, and then Apple requested access to my email address, my personal information, and the ability to move photos to my Google Photos library. After I confirmed that, then it let me choose, do I want to transfer all of my photos and videos? Do I want to just do photos? Do I want to just do videos? Here's how much space it's going to take. If you don't have that much space on your Google account, then we'll only be able to transfer so many, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So 18,367 photos would go to Google Photos. 1,361 videos would go to Google Photos for a total of less than 200 gigabytes. What is interesting to me, or what I'm curious about and why I did this, is because I want to know if it's smart. Will Google Photos recognize that these are duplicates, or will I just be suddenly doubling my photo library over on Google Photos?
Yeah,
and we'll find out.
That's what I was curious.
I also got emails. Google emailed me twice to let me know, once that I logged in, once that Apple data and privacy was granted access to my Google account. Apple sent me an email to say, hey, we're going to start copying your photos to Google Photos. It sent that to both my Gmail account, which is the account that I use for Google, obviously, and my @me account, which is my account that I use for my iCloud. And then it's saying it does that for both photo and videos because they're two separate transfer requests. And it will also, when it's done, it will send me a confirmation saying, hey, your photos are done transferring. Hey, your videos are done transferring. So I will update next week with anything else that I might get from Apple about this, just to see, because they say they have to confirm that it's you who asked for this transfer. So I'm curious if they're going to need anything from me physically or not. I, for example, logged in using my fingerprint on my MacBook Pro, so that could result in them being able to confirm that a little bit easier. I don't know. So we're going to see.
Yeah, interesting. Also, I found the tweet. It is at privacy.apple.com, and then the button is get a copy of your data, and then you can download your iCloud photos too. And I was very curious as you were saying that. I was like, I hope Facebook has this, because I'm pretty sure I only have really low quality Facebook versions of my trip to Europe in college because I lost the originals, and I would love if they actually had the originals or like a high quality version, but they just don't want you to be able to download it. Like I downloaded I think all of my images, and it was like downsampled very much, like worse than I think the quality of the photo that I uploaded originally, or like even what you can see. It was, I was like, come on, guys. So I think this is necessary for these types of services, especially because you might have made that decision of which one to use years ago, and it doesn't, like, actually being locked into that isn't great. And this is your data. You should have access to it. So they're doing the right thing here, which is good. And Apple can score like points in the short term of like, oh, you can export your data easily to the other major popular service. And that makes just people feel better who use it because they're not trapped in there as much.
Yep. Although Google Photos is slowly losing popularity due to that decision that it recently made. So that's kind of interesting as well.
A lot more paid now, yeah. But it's interesting. That's a good point. I was going to say I wouldn't transfer mine over as much anymore, but
for folks who have an Apple device and have enrolled in any of the research studies, Apple has had a research study about hearing loss for a while, and some of these studies have resulted in some kind of outcomes, some findings based on these studies. And one of those is the Apple hearing study, which looks at hearing loss and all sorts of like exposure to loud sounds, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And with the Apple hearing study, Apple partnered with University of Michigan and wanted to figure out how daily sound exposure impacts hearing over time. According to Gizmodo, Dr. Rick Neitzel from the University of Michigan noted that the thousands of participants in the study volunteer their data, including regular questionnaires, but also regular hearing tests. I partook in this study at first. I have not done them in a long time, but in the early days, I was doing them pretty regularly. And it also looked at how noise exposure from headphones affected people's hearings. So it's not just your Apple Watch listening, it was also how your headphones worked. And from that, it said, one intriguing takeaway from the early data is that 1 in 5 participants experienced some kind of hearing loss, according to the World Health Organization's guidelines on hearing loss, and that there seems to be a link between chronic environmental noise and cardiovascular disease, which is interesting. Yeah. What else did the study find?
Yeah, this is fascinating. There's lots of different percentages, but it's like 10% of people had been professionally diagnosed, but despite that, 3/4 of them weren't actually using their suggested implants or anything like that, or the hearing aid. It's like 10% of people were using their headphones too much or too loud, according to the weekly WHO limits. And then 20% had a daily exposure that was too high. So it's like more like 1 in 5 people does like have like this. I guess that's where that original stat came from. They work in a loud workplace. And then in this one is me, because it's 25% regularly experienced a ringing in the ears that could be tinnitus, and that 50% hadn't had their hearing tested by a professional. So I used to play drums, and I definitely have tinnitus. Like if I wear AirPods Pro with the SoundSing, I do just hear ringing a little bit, but it's one of those things where I don't notice it until I do. And so I just try not to think about it. And I've even seen a story of a fancy, you like hold your fingers behind your head and like somehow like snap your fingers against the back of your skull and it can relieve it, which is kind of a fascinating thing.
Interesting.
I love too that I've always had I have a shortcut called Health Review that looks at the different pages in the health app, because I've been in there before and it is fascinating just to see. I think I was checking when I got the HomePod Mini if I was listening much louder or anything like that, or just with the Apple Watch, I was really obsessed with the noise measurements when I went back when I could go to concerts. But it was like, oh, this is why you can't hear after a concert. It's because it's been about like 4 hours above the recommended limit, and it is just extremely loud. But I think the part about cardiovascular disease is interesting, because I mean, I've read studies before about the effect of environments on how you work and things like that, and it totally is. If you have chronic environmental noise, you are just kind of stressed out, and then ultimately that is going to be your body's stressed and your heart has to work harder for those kinds of things. So it is like an interesting, I need silence from my heart. Just like, shut up already. That's why we all got to be wearing headphones, and not too loud though, also in the headphones. So, I mean, it does make sense too that headphones, I mean, you can just listen at a lower volume and not need to crank it as much. So it's an interesting study just because there's so many more people wearing these devices, and the iPhone and iPad can report that data too. So it's like the largest virtual study to date with hearing stuff.
Because of the World Health Organization guidelines.
What? I can't hear you. Oh, no.
We're going to be whispering.
I literally can't hear you.
I have smart tech today. That's not good that you can't hear me.
Oh, yeah.
You should be able to hear me.
That's just all I hear.
Lovely. So this was a piece that I can't remember where I ended up talking about this, because I saw this and I thought this was so cool. But Apple, along with Google and Amazon, are all looking at ways to improve the virtual assistant's understanding of folks with atypical speech patterns. And they're all using different means to do it. One of the ways that Apple is doing it is by using podcasts that feature folks with atypical speech patterns to help inform Siri on how folks with atypical speech patterns communicate, how they speak. And so essentially what that does is it makes this technology more accessible to folks with atypical speech patterns. So whereas, I noticed that Siri even gets a little impatient if I say, hey, you, can I have I would never say, can I have it? Hey, you, turn on and I stopped to think about which light I was trying to turn on. And then it immediately tries to get do the thing that I'm asking it to do. I haven't said what I wanted yet. And so even for folks without atypical speech patterns, it can be kind of difficult. So it's really nice that Apple, Google, and Amazon are all trying to improve upon this using different means. There's an app that has it's going to soon have an integration for the Echo. And there are volunteers who have atypical speech patterns who will record phrases and record, all this content for this app. And what happens is you tie the app to Alexa through the integration, like a skill, and with it enabled, it will be better at understanding folks with atypical speech patterns. Very cool stuff. And I'm excited to see these different companies doing it.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've heard of the term. They're saying right now it's mostly about stutter type of speech patterns. Like they're saying the event types are blocks, prolongations, sound repetitions, word repetitions, and interjections. But I hadn't heard of, they want to get it further to things like dysarthria. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's like difficult or unclear articulation of speech. So that's interesting of just like, yeah, I don't want to characterize that because I think it is easy to like, and if you're not being sensitive to it, to say that you're like speaking weirdly or something like that, but it is atypical, like you said. And these things, especially over time, especially since they generally have a sort of voice match type of thing, they know that you're more likely to do that. So if you are speaking, then it can know to like wait a little bit longer or something like that. So this is awesome. I think this is very cool. And like you said, even if it does particularly benefit people with atypical speech patterns, it'll help you too, because you might just do something in a very simple way or just prolongate your sentence naturally because of there's a lot of decision making with voice stuff that is a little odd. And when you're doing it out loud, especially like, not that my mom has any type of speech pattern stuff, but she just has a lot of trouble delivering like I always call it a Siri payload, because you're like, hey, it's like activation, do this in this app or something. And people are usually, when you get started, you're like, what do I even say? And you like panic halfway through. So this could benefit everyone. Awesome story.
I agree.
That kind of stuff.
Now, this next story kind of has my hair standing a little on end. I've got to say, there are companies like health insurance companies who even though there are concerns that I have about it, there's reasonably a reason. Yes. There's reasonably a reason for one of those companies to introduce a program that, you get an Apple Watch, you do the different stuff, and it results in a better insurance rate, or even just, helping cover the purchase of an Apple Watch through your insurance company because they know how it can help. But Best Buy, the tech company, they're not the tech company, Best Buy, the tech reseller company. I don't know what is Best Buy exactly? Retailer. Yeah, thank you. I don't know why I can think of that word. Best Buy, the tech retailer, is creating something called its Lively Health and Safety Service, which to me just sounds like a way for them to make money off of their customers for things that they don't really need. What do you think?
I mean, it's a bit of a partnership, and I can see I was trying to understand, it is just like Best Buy has a urgent call response system for your Apple Watch, and you're kind of just like, why Best Buy? Like what? But I was thinking about how, especially, Apple went through the same thing of a lot of the wearable stuff that they sell ultimately just is health stuff, not necessarily. There's definitely fitness angles to it, but for most average consumers, it's a health lifestyle kind of thing. And so Best Buy is partnered with this company. It's greatcall.com is the business itself, and they have a service called Lively, but it's a way that lets you have sort of like a is it Life Link? What's the one that you press the button when you fall down? I can't remember.
Life Alert.
Yeah, Life Alert. It's kind of like something like that. They're saying it's for emergencies and non-emergencies, or also it's a service that can route back to your different contacts and let them know if you're not okay or things like that. And I think more it's being able to check in on people is an interesting one. The other part too is that it's like $200 off of the Apple Watch if you get it through Best Buy and sign up through this. So it's kind of I can see it being like it's just a promotion for Best Buy, and then also sort of an interesting way for, Best Buy Health. I think that larger initiative for them slightly does make sense. I don't know. It's a stretch a bit. I think it's like $30 a month. And so I think it does sound like a thing where Best Buy can add on, and then they make a bunch of money off of you while also like you technically get a discount, but in the long run, you're going to be paying them back anyways for it, and then maybe not ever use it. But it is like I don't know, not everybody goes through Apple or these other tech companies. And ultimately, if it is actually a useful service, there's not necessarily a problem with that. It's just a little odd. Like, why would you go to Best Buy to buy a Life Alert? Just doesn't seem like in your mentality, but I also don't go to Best Buy that much. So maybe it has been more of it's like where people who don't know about technology and want to go talk to someone in person at the retailer, that's like the main place you would go that isn't a dedicated store. So it can make sense there, but be on the lookout of just, it sounds like a 2-year warranty kind of deal that they always sell you to. Now you can also get monitoring, even though the Apple Watch kind of already does it itself. So yeah, we'll see. It is a partnership, so slightly, or I don't want to say directly a partnership with Apple, but they did work with them to like make sure it all works well and isn't just like, oh, the app crashed, so it didn't work.
Oh, that's good.
So it's interesting. Yeah.
That makes me feel a little bit better about it. I don't like the idea of a company what's the first thing to go in in a company whose focus is not this particular thing. You know what I mean? Like they're going to stop supporting this app before they're going to stop, selling printers in their stores. So I worry about getting people subscribed to a thing that they don't end up continuing. Unless, I guess in the article it also does say Best Buy Health. So it's clear that this is an arm of the company, which plays a role in me believing in the longevity of it, but it's still kind of like, meh.
Yeah, it's a little, they have their Best Buy Health's president of active aging. It's like, what? Best Buy is into active aging? That's why it's like,
how do you have inactive aging?
It is like they've got to be a. I don't know.
Is inactive aging like when you stop feeding your sourdough starter? And it just,
I think it's saying for old people, but they're trying to say nicely. It's like you're actively getting aged. So you're actively aging, as opposed to like you're just kind of growing up still. But it makes sense. Of like that's probably a huge segment of their customer base. And even just as a business, having a 2-year contract renewable thing is like they know that you're going to be paying for that for the next 2 years. And so they can kind of build forward from there. It's like you do have instant access to a nurse or doctor. So I could see it being like, especially if you are actively aging and need some health type advice, but you don't want to go into the doctor constantly. It's like right on your wrist kind of thing. It is, I think that the combination of all that plus Best Buy is like, yeah, sure, I guess. I would never think of it, but it kind of makes sense, I guess, for them. I don't know about for the average user or something like that. But again, there's so many people with technology. Everybody needs their own kind of solutions too. So might as well be Best Buy.
Yeah, I guess. Up next, we've got HomeKit specific news. HomeKit specific news. All right. What's first in HomeKit news? Are we finally going to get the blinds we've been waiting for, Matthew?
We'll see. It's interesting. So Eve has been doing a lot with Thread, and we will, maybe you can mention in a second, but we will be interviewing someone from the company. But this article from, I think, 2 weeks ago in February was about how a Dutch company, Coulisse, is working with Eve to get their HomeKit smart window covering motors. So blinds. Sorry, that just threw me off. That sentence. That is like a very technical description of wireless motors with roller blinds. So this is interesting because it will be Thread based, and that's something that Eve has been doing a lot with. Do you want to tell people about who we're interviewing?
Yes.
Are we allowed to?
So very excited. On January 25th, we will be joined by Tim Both, who is
January?
January? What am I saying? On March 25th, we will be joined by Tim Both, who is is a member of the Zigbee Alliance, is a member of the Thread Group, and is also head of product marketing at Eve. And so not only is Eve kind of leading the charge on Thread-based devices, but they also have somebody up there in the company who kind of lives and breathes all of these technologies and will be joining us to talk about them. So I know Matthew and I are both very excited for this upcoming interview to get a chance to talk to Tim about what Eve is doing in particular, but also just about Thread in general and why they kind of see Thread as the future of the smart home, or one very good piece of what the future of the smart home is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So we can save more of that discussion for then, but it's Absolutely. Exciting just because, especially it does seem like Eve is really pushing this, and maybe that's a strategy to like get us to talk about this because they've been doing pretty consistent stuff there. So it's cool to see them kind of being a leader in the HomeKit space for that, which is nice because even just thinking about it otherwise, I don't think I could name, they are HomeKit only, which I think helps a lot. So makes sense for them to focus on that.
Yep. So up next is this is pretty exciting too, because Sensibo has been around for a long time, but it is not a product that I ever was very interested in because it did not have support for the HomeKit system. It also didn't really work for my particular HVAC, but I know a lot of people who have in-window AC systems or similar type systems where they just want a way to communicate with their AC in the same way that their remote does without having to have the remote. And Sensibo Air is that system, and it now supports HomeKit.
Yeah, this is nice. I hadn't actually heard of them, so this was like totally new to me. But they've got both a motion sensor and then is it an IR blaster, basically?
Yes. But
it's sending... Yeah, I was thinking of SwitchBot also, because I'm curious if they have a similar thing. I don't remember if they have a motion sensor or not, but it's just a way to then send a signal to your air conditioner, and it has got line of sight to it that it's like, oh, from HomeKit, you should turn it on or do all those automation type of things, which is pretty neat. So if you have a temperature sensor, I guess, with it, or...
yes, you can get the temperature sensor to go along with it.
Nice. That's cool. $139 for a single unit. And then with the motion sensor, it is $179. Nice. I feel like this will be more and more relevant in the coming months as it gets warmer.
Yeah, indeed. The next piece is that the Fibaro motion sensor, which Fibaro has been known to make some kind of pricey devices, although well designed, has one of their prices down to $40. This is easily one of the most frightening products that exists in the HomeKit lineup.
You were saying well designed, but this is literally like a motion sensor that has the Eye of Sauron on the front. So it's like not exactly, but for some reason they chose to make the part that detects it look like an eyeball. It has like a vertical oval, I guess, down the middle, and it can use this display to like show you different settings. But at first I was like, does this literally look around and like detect your motion? Because that would be so creepy.
So creepy.
This just blew my mind. I don't know. I haven't actually heard of this company too, and they did. I was watching like the product video on Amazon, and they're like, we want them to be the perfect blend of utility and design. And I was like, well, I don't know if you hit the design with this one because it is very weird looking. Yeah, it's got temperature detection too and stuff. So you gotta check this out in the show notes. Though it literally does just look like Sauron to me. It's blue, I guess, but
yeah, I like that it's not just motion detection. It can detect light values, temperature, and it has a built-in accelerometer so that if somebody tries to move it, you can also be notified about it as well. It's funny that even they themselves in the Amazon listing, it says this unusual device allows you to measure your temperature and light intensity. So it's saying like, yeah, we get it. It's unusual, but
hilarious.
Check it out.
Look, the first Amazon question, how creepy does this thing look in person? I can't get past the Eye of Sauron vibe. And then someone said it doesn't look that IRL, so we'll see. Yeah, it does. It's probably just the product photos as much, but
they should probably change those product photos to make it, because I thought it would have this kind of cool display. As creepy as it is, it's also kind of cool. And so it looks like all it does in the front is just kind of light up whenever it's giving you some notifications. And of course, up next is the Fibaro is not the only one who makes a motion sensor. IKEA's own trad-free buttons and motion sensors are rolling out for $9.99, which is a great price, surprising price, and will also feature HomeKit support, given the fact that they are tied to to the hub that IKEA makes.
Yeah. You have to pay for that separately. So I did see some people on Twitter being like, that kind of kills it for me. I don't want to buy another hub just to start adding these things in. It's like IKEA finally got around to HomeKit, and now we're all moving on to Thread on top of HomeKit, and they probably won't support that immediately. So that is always interesting. But these are so cheap that it does make sense to have if you want to have a physical button in a place, you can just have it respond to your single press or I think double or triple. The Verge article actually has a pretty funny explanation of how what's confusing is that you can have them work with both IKEA's app and system as well as HomeKit at the same time. So it can trigger something via the IKEA thing, which does have like deeper Spotify integrations, but then you could have it HomeKit automation also go off at the same time. And they were saying the one major downside is that I think the buttons have like a 3-minute delay in between them, probably for battery life, but it is like you couldn't, if you had the automation turn off the light within the 3 minutes, the sensor wouldn't detect. Oh yeah, it was the sensor that has the delay. It wouldn't detect that you were there again until that reset. So it could be for like I think his was a pantry. It's like maybe not in a space where you're going to move in and out regularly, but it could just be for like a doorway or more general areas. But pretty cool. I love seeing IKEA. I mean, just major brands supporting HomeKit. I still think I've said this many times, but it almost blows my mind that it felt like I never saw any HomeKit devices before we started the show, and now there's like almost one every single week. So these are actually like major steps into. It's like that story of HomeKit doesn't have enough devices. I don't think is really that true anymore. Like there's tons in here. Even the next one. I mean, unless you had anything else to say, I guess. But
no, that's it.
Yeah. The next one is Moras also now has a dual smart plug for HomeKit, which is cool. And it, from what I can tell, it also doesn't block the other outlet, which is a very stupid thing that a lot of outlet-based things do, is you just can't plug anything into the one below it. So the dual smart plug has just 2 outlets, and then you can plug it in on either side. And it looks like there's little buttons that you can press too to activate and deactivate them, which is nice. But I totally want one of these. You can set them up as a single thing or double or separately in HomeKit, which is always nice too. It's probably going to be separate, but I can see totally using this. It's like make more automations out of a single outlet, and you don't have to get a whole power strip too.
Yeah, I like that. Without having to go for the whole power strip. I think that's what you've noted there. That's the most important part. Is very.
And this
nice.
is only $30 for the. Oh wait. It's $19 for one and $30 for a 2-pack. So that's actually 4 HomeKit outlets for $30. That's pretty solid.
That's really good. Wow.
I guess they're probably on sale.
Yeah, exactly. But folks can check that out if they want to add to their HomeKit home and save some money doing it. Yeah. All righty, let us move on to our project segment. This week, we are going to do things just a slight bit different. Instead of talking about a project, wanted to kind of explain what this segment was intended to be and put out the call to those of you out there. So when I pitched this show originally, the sort of second segment of the show, it would be news, and then it would be a project segment or a guest spot, and then the last pick would be the picks of the week, chance to answer questions from listeners and read feedback on air. This second segment, when it came to projects, my idea was that there would be folks out there, those of you listening to the show, who have smart homes or who want to get into the smart home ecosystem or are helping others who are getting into the smart home ecosystem. And you have ideas for things you want to do, but aren't sure quite on the execution. And this would be a chance for Matthew and I to help you kind of answer the questions that you have about building out your own smart homes. Because for he and I, for the most part, our smart homes are kind of how we want them. And, we've gotten the products, we've set them up in the different places, we've got them. And so it's kind of hard to have a project every week. And so that was never the idea in the first place. The idea was that you out there who, you start to hear about some of this stuff and you think it sounds cool, but you're just not exactly sure how to set it up, or you have an idea and you're not sure about the execution. You could ask us. It's stt@twitch.tv for some thoughts on that. And so, for example, maybe you want to make it so that when your garage door opens, the light in the garage turns on, and you're not sure how to set that up. So you not only tell us that's what you want to do, but you tell us that your products are ALEXA enabled, or they are part of the Google Assistant and you're on Android, or that you use iOS and that you have the HomeKit app. Any number of things. You give us kind of the details, and then we help you get things figured out. Recently, one of our mutual friends on Twitter was talking about how he wanted to add a fan to his back porch that was able to be used on a porch as opposed to being used inside of the home, that didn't take up as much space as a typical ceiling fan, but that was also HomeKit enabled. And at first, he was looking for a fan itself that was HomeKit enabled to do this, and ended up that the better solution was to find a HomeKit enabled in-wall switch that provided fan speeds and things like that. So we would happily answer those kinds of questions and do these projects for the sake of you listeners out there who I've got some smart lights, but what I'd really like to do is set it so that when my dog comes upstairs into the secondary living space, I get a notification on my phone letting me know that the dog's not listening to the rules or something like that. Again, these are just coming off the top of my head, but plenty of ideas out there, plenty of things that you maybe are thinking you want to do, but you're struggling to do, or maybe you've tried it one way and you feel like it could be simpler. All those kinds of things. This is the segment where we want to help you get your own smart home projects figured out.
Exactly.
And of course, feel free to share them. If somebody else that you've heard has them, feel free to share them there as well. But stt@twitch.tv. And of course, you're going to want to give us all of the information that you can about your situation, including your personal smart home devices, kind of what you use in order for us to help you. But Matthew, is there something you want to add?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say too, you might not know where you want to go next too. I think we do want to open this up more to help people get beyond some of just the basics or things we've already discussed. I'll say too, the automations on top are a ripe area for opportunity. I'm totally down to answer shortcuts type stuff, but also just HomeKit automations, stuff like Zapier and if this then that. I think we should get into a little bit more too. I don't want to verbally walk you through an entire Zap, but maybe we could build some stuff or just kind of tie it all together in more interesting ways. So we totally want to hear people's problems. Maybe you are stuck. Maybe you're fully set up and you've just already got a ton of stuff too, and we could just share people's setups as well. That'd be fun. But yeah, as well, I mean, the other part too with guests is we've got a ton of people in mind, but if there are specific industry people or something like that, if you have a connection or our mutuals on Twitter or something like that, we'd always love that as well. So could be fun. Yes, send us your requests. We will do the projects for you. Use our skills. And it's hardware and software too. So. Yep.
All right. Up next, our picks of the week. Matthew Cassinelli, what is your pick of the week?
This week, I'm interested in 12 South's new Hover Bar Duo. So this is an iPad stand with a weighted base and a very long arm, or I guess the base is one of the modules, but a very long arm for your iPad. so that you could, it looks like one of the main things is making it sort of a second monitor for your computer setup, or they've got a clamp arm too, so you could hang it from the underside of a cabinet and have your iPad up with your recipes. I love little details, like it's got a little divot on the front of it for your Apple Pencil, because that's totally something that I have an iPad stand, and when I close it, the Apple Pencil doesn't fit there, and so it just pops off. And so having a spot for the Apple Pencil, I think, is clever too. I don't know why they've got one for where you could lean it forward on itself and have it propped up, but I don't particularly know why you would want to do that. I guess you can. But I have mini versions of this for my iPhone, and I've been stacking books on it to do FaceTime calls and things like that. So this actually does look like a pretty solid video conferencing tool, especially if you're at home and don't want to look at the bottom corner of your iPad because for a FaceTime call. So it's $80, and 12 South is just a solid company. They make legitimate hardware that is like, this looks nice quality, not like, I can't tell if it's brushed metal or whatever, but it looks nice to the touch too, which always seems important. It does kind of have a chunky clamp, so you will be seeing that, but at least it's going to hold it and not break your expensive glass screen. So seems pretty solid. I want one. Yeah,
I want one too. I on Instagram this morning, I saw an ad for it and thought, oh, I'm going to need to have that, because I love the Satoshi stand that I have for my iPad.
Exactly.
I actually use it so much, and I was surprised at how much I use it. This one kind of goes even farther than the current. Yes, nice.
Yes, I've got one. Sorry, it just ran with it.
And this one goes even farther. I mean, the length of it is really impressive. The way that you can drop your Apple Pencil down into the little groove, and it's got, sort of cable management built into it with that opening in the back. So all of that stuff together, I think really it's a well-designed product that I think is pretty smart.
I'm just remembering the other one that we talked about that also made itself into a Qi charger and all that. And we were all kind of like, ugh, and it was like $350. And then,
oh yeah,
like, this is what you actually want, more like it. So
yeah, something more lightweight and very maneuverable, as it were.
Yeah, I like it. I totally have a overhead setup and a whole bar thing for my camera gear. And so I want to get the clamp version too, so I could have a little like live monitor thing on my iPad up in the air, which is nice. What's your pick?
All right. My pick is something we talked about a while back on the show. This is the Q Labs UTS-1. Again, one of those names that kind of needs some work, but the device itself is pretty neat. This is a device that lets you basically add wireless charging to any part of your home. Or to not to any part of your home, but to any table or desk or surface in your home. So the way that this works is you put it underneath, can be under any non-metallic surfaces, wood, plastic, granite, quartz, marble, or glass, and it plugs in, and then using it, you can charge your device. 7.5 watts for Apple's Qi-enabled devices, 9 watts for Samsung's Qi-enabled devices, 5-watt charging for Google, Huawei, Sony, Nokia, and LG Qi-enabled devices. And it's kind of neat. It comes with a little meter on the side that shows you how well it will work for your device. If it's too thin, then you should not use it. You want it right within this sweet spot of green and yellow to make it charge properly, because it's too close and it's pushing too much up and too far away and it doesn't have anything. This green spot is kind of the best way for it to do the charging, but the yellow will work as well. And so you can adjust there's a little switch on the side for the low setting or the high setting. And so I checked it. Go ahead.
So does that mean if it's too close to the charger, it won't work? It's got to be far enough away?
Correct. It does need to be far enough away. And that's for
only through
reasons.
The table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not like a normal charger. In fact, within the thing, it says there's a little label that's like, hey, don't put your phone directly on top of this because that's not what it's meant to do. So it's a pretty thin little thing. It comes with 3M stickers on it so that you can place it properly. And then it comes with the hardware that you need to screw it in. It's got a vent on the bottom, and inside you can actually see the heat sink that's there to provide for heat protection. And then it also has these very cool templates that you can lay down onto the surface of your table to then mark where you are, where the best charging takes place. It's got a bunch of stickers so that you can put, a sticker at the top and the bottom so that you know optimal charging zones, but it also has little kind of indicators so that if you just want to leave an indicator, you can. It also has these types of stickers as well, if you'd rather just use those. And I think that some of them are not just sticker, but yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Sorry for the listeners out there. There are clear circles that have a battery in the middle with a charge indicator on it. And then, of course, it comes with your installation guide and your cable. So I'm thinking about installing it on a side table in my living room as a way to charge for anybody to use it to charge their devices. But I think this is a really cool concept that lets you add Qi charging to any surface that you want. Well, I should say on supported surfaces, non-metallic surfaces within a certain distance. But the site has all of the information that you need about what optimal width is for this device, and by doing so, then you make sure that you can charge properly. So yeah, that's the QLabs UTS-1 wireless charger, $105 for the charger. But if you are looking for a way to secretly, to clandestinely add wireless charging to your home, then this is one way to make that happen.
Do you know if it makes noise?
I have not plugged it in yet. So, because I want to make sure that it's installed properly, and then I will have to listen very closely for sounds.
Or I just imagine if it was under my desk, if it would blow air on me or something like that. It's like
it doesn't seem to have a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I think it's just a heat sink.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this is interesting. I could totally see. It's like. They're like, don't drill a hole in your desk to put a Qi charger in. You could just put this on top, which totally makes sense. I imagined like every startup in San Francisco having these under their desks as just like the fancy or like the new Twitter offices. Everybody has Qi chargers underneath kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I think it's a clever idea. And I like the little sticker thing too. It's like turn your desk into a Starbucks charging table
or an airport charging table. Yeah,
exactly.
I can finally simulate the airport at home.
Perfect.
Finally. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. Of course, you can email us, stt@twit.tv. Of course, you can tune in live if you'd like to check out the show while we're recording it. We record live every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 1:30 p.m. Pacific. You just head to twit.tv/live to do that. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to it. You do that by going to twit.tv/STT. That stands for Smart Tech Today, as you might imagine. And you can click to subscribe to the show in both audio and video formats. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. We're on all the places. We're where you are, so that you can subscribe to the show in those places. Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow you and check out the great work you're doing, where do they go to do that?
You can visit my website at matthewcassinelli.com/Siri shortcuts. Is where I've got that new collection that I've been, I think, teasing for weeks on accident, but it's all there now. And then I'm making my comeback on YouTube soon. So I'm not going to promise a date because that's always a mistake. But
now I heard that Matthew was going to be back on this day, but he isn't there. Where is he?
Late. This arbitrary date that you just set up. Now you're late for it, and now you should feel bad. No, I'm just kidding.
That is what it can sometimes feel like. I am at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, for links to all the places I exist online. Alrighty, folks, it is time to say good afternoon to all of your smart assistants.
Gotta check my Gatorade patch. Oh yeah, looks like I should hydrate.
How are your microfluidic channels doing?
Yeah,
microfluidic channel. Ugh, gross.
Hey folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, host of Hands of Photography here on Twit TV. I know some of you have gotten yourself a brand new camera, or you just had a camera sitting around and can't quite figure out how to get the most out of it. Well, I have a solution. My show, Hands on Photography. So subscribe right now to learn how to get the most out of that camera. I'm going to show you how to make those images pop. I don't care if it's a Canon camera. I don't care if it's a Sony, Nikon, iPhone, Android, even an inexpensive Android device. I got you covered. So head on over to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.